Alrighty, so the nominees for the Game Awards just dropped. Actually, that's a bit of a lie. They dropped yesterday, but the site has been broken for pretty much an entire day. And yeah, I wanted to talk about it. So I kind of already recorded a video where I went through all of the nominees, all of the award categories, gave my thoughts on like the snubs and what I thought was going to win. And I don't think it was very good. And part of that is because it became very samey because the awards this year have a lot of the same games. There's a lot of like 2 or 3 specific games that are in a lot of the award categories over and over. I still go through some of the main awards and give my thoughts on them, but I also just want to kind of give my thoughts on what's going on here with the awards itself, because I'm not really happy with this, and I haven't really looked online much about it, but it kind of feels like the awards this year are a bit shit. So I've been kind of looking through the FAQ, and something a lot of people don't realize with these awards is that nominees are chosen by select gaming outlets. So in the FAQ, you can read it. It's a jury over 100 global media and influencer outlets, which you can look at here. Most of the normal ones that you would find, IGN, GameSpot. Sometimes there are, content creators. So there's Kind of Funny here, Eurogamer, Dexerto. Oh, okay. I'm not sure about that. Gaming Bible. Surely there are some better people you could go to. Let's see Australia. Press Start, Screen Hub, Skill Up, makes sense. So a wide variety. So 90% of the voting power goes to these people, and same with who's in charge of nominees. A lot of European outlets, which might explain the Expedition 33 sweep going on. So 90% of the voting power goes to the voting jury, and 10% goes to the people. So voting, it doesn't really matter that much. Your voting power is 1/10 the power of these guys. And these guys are also in charge of who got nominated. Apparently, each voting outlet completes a confidential unranked ballot based on collective and diverse opinion of its entire editorial staff. Supposedly, that's how it works. It might explain how some of the nominations happened, because they do feel a bit normy. Anyway, so for Game of the Year, we got Expedition 33, Death Stranding 2, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Hades 2, Hollow Knight Silk Song, and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. The sixth slot was probably, a lot of people were thinking it was going to be Ghosts of Yotei. I'm happy to see Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 get a nod. This game doesn't get recognized enough. I mean, I haven't played it, but I never hear like anything bad about it. I always say that Kingdom Come Deliverance is like the best game that I never played. I heard really good things about 2. Game of the Year, this is a pretty solid selection of games. I haven't played Hades 2 or Silk Song, but yeah, they've got the reputation. I've played these 3 games, and I think these 3 are well worth a nomination. If I'm going to pick who's going to win, I think it would be Expedition 33. It's the game... Oh, okay. I thought there was a lock-in button, but okay, Yeah, so Expedition 33 is going to be my pick, and I think it's going to win. Fantastic game. Has a good story behind it, being made by a bunch of people who left corporate Ubisoft that wouldn't have been able to get this game made. Made it on a pretty decent budget. I think it was about $30 million, and just made like one of the best games of the year. I think Silk Song has a very good chance, and I think Death Stranding 2 also has a chance. I don't think Bonanza has a chance. Hades 2, maybe. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 would be my dark horse because it is such a critic darling. But Expedition 33 has the support of like the majority of people, I feel like. Best game direction almost always usually goes to whoever gets Game of the Year. There are some exceptions. I think Alan Wake 2 took Best Game Direction from Game of the Year in 2023. And I think the reason for that is because Sam Lake was the director behind it. And so we do have 2 big names directors with Death Stranding 2 on the Beach and Split Fiction. So Joseph Perez and Hideo Kojima are very well-known game directors with specific visions. And I feel like the award may go away from Expedition 33 in this one instance just because of that. Anyway, game direction is a very vague term. Award for outstanding creative vision and innovation in game direction and design. I wouldn't say any of these games were very innovative. Split Fiction is just It Takes Two, but more action blockbuster heavy. Expedition 33 is the most probably unique game, just because it's the only game that isn't a sequel or in Split Fiction's case, kind of like using that same game design, like co-op game design principle that they've done a couple of times before, but again in a different setting. I'm going to vote Expedition 33. The game I have the least negative things to say about. I love Death Stranding 2 on the beach, but I also hate it. But it does have a very unique vision. Split Fiction, I have my problems with that. I might talk about that in my end of year video. This website is absolutely busted. So I just want to bring up the categories real quick. So we have our normal, like, best narrative, best art direction, best music and score, and best audio design, best performance. These are all fine. Innovation and accessibility are all fine. When it comes to genre, we've got best action and we've also got best action adventure. There's no best horror, which I feel like should be a category. I'm not sure if it ever has been before, but it definitely should be again because there has been a recent resurgence in horror games. And that way you can make like space for Silent Hill F or Chronos the New Dawn. Spread out the genres a little bit. But I do want to talk about best independent game. So, best independent game and best debut indie game. Best outstanding and creative and technical achievement in a game made outside the traditional publisher system. So, it definitely irked me to see Expedition 33 nominated for best independent game and also best debut indie. Couple of reasons for this. The first is that the game was made by a studio of like 30 or so people, and it also had a budget of around $30 million, which is a lot. I wouldn't call it an indie game. In the case of best independent game, Ball X Pit was made by one or a few people. Blueprints was designed by one guy. Silk Song, 3 people. I'm not so sure about Supergiant. I know they are a bigger team of people, but they also self-publish their game. Expedition 33 has a publisher. They have, a sizable team. They have a decent budget, and they got that budget from their publisher, or I would assume so. It feels wrong for it to be here. And especially if, Expedition 33 wins Game of the Year, then it's going to win this and Best Debut Indie by default. Or it should, because if it's the best game, then it's the best game across the board. It's not Sandfall Interactive's fault. It's not the devs' fault that they got nominated for this. It's the jury's fault for nominating them. These guys, whoever nominated them for Best Indie Game, hand in your credentials, man. Just fucking hand them in. I mean, technically it might be an indie game, but you want this category to recognize the small guys. And yeah, I would argue that these guys have a good story behind them with leaving Ubisoft, leaving the corporate world, and then going out and making their own game and putting a lot of heart and effort in and making one of the best games of the year. Fine. And they deserve recognition, but not for Best Indie. This should go to literally anyone else. There's no Haste here, which is a pretty big snub. No Peak. Maybe even Clover Pit could have had a nod here. I know it's a bit derivative, but still. Voidbreaker. And yeah, same with Best Debut Indie, because it's their first go. Now they're up against, games like Despelote, which is a fantastic game that tells a very personal story and was made by one guy. But, they can't compete against Expedition 33 because I would call it a AA game, not an indie game. Like, it had a modest budget. I don't know, independent studio means something different to me than I guess it means to other people. This award should go to any one of these other 4 games, or even give someone else a recognition. Expedition 33 is getting all of the recognition for everything else, and it deserves it, but it feels wrong to be taking away from the little guy. Like, the really little guys. It is actually kind of surprising to see Dispatch, and I guess Megabonk here as well, in this category, because they are so new. Brings me to something else, which was very, very strange. Best Adaptation is filled with just the worst. Hang on, where is it? So, Best Adaptation, we have a Minecraft movie, Devil May Cry, Splinter Cell Deathwatch, Last of Us Season 2, and Until Dawn. The Until Dawn movie has like a 40-something score on Metacritic, and that's nominated for Best Adaptation. Somehow. Something interesting I found in the FAQ, the cutoff date for eligibility. So games eligible for the Game Awards this year must be available for public consumption on or before Friday the 21st of 2025, which, if you're doing your math correctly, is 2 days from now. So games that haven't come out yet are somehow eligible for Game Awards this year and for nominations. Like, nominations came out yesterday on the 18th, and somehow games that come out from between the 18th and the 21st eligible for nominations, even though the nominations are already in. So if you're an indie game comes out within like this week, you're screwed. Or even if last week. So games like Luminous Arise came out last week. I don't think any of the press outlets would have had time to have played that game, let alone vote for it or it being given the time. I would have made the cutoff date like a couple of weeks ago. So this brings me back to best adaptation. Sonic 3 isn't here, which came out December last year, which means it should be eligible because it wasn't nominated last year. And I would say, like, Sonic 3, it isn't just a good video game movie, it's actually a good movie. I think the Minecraft movie is going to win by default because I don't think a lot of people liked The Last of Us Season 2. I certainly didn't. It was a bit of a nothing burger. It was half, maybe even a quarter of a season of television, it felt like. The first couple episodes were great. There was one good episode in the middle, and the rest was just kind of nothing. Not sure what happened here. I'm not sure if the press outlets even know, like, when the eligibility date starts or when it ends. Look, again, it's very unknown, and then it leads to whatever the hell this is. Looking through these awards, there are a lot of strange choices. Best audio design, no arc raiders here. I would say Death Stranding 2 has some pretty good audio design. Silent Hill F has some decent audio design. I've watched a friend play it, and it sounded pretty good. Expedition 33, I don't think deserves best audio design. Like, it's fine, but there's nothing special. But, Arc Raiders is like a game where it feels like you can almost close your eyes and you can hear everything happening around you, and you can kind of you would be able to picture it in your mind just by, like, from what you hear. I've never been able to track footsteps better in any other game than Arc Raiders. What the hell? If this was best soundtrack, like, audio design does not mean best soundtrack. And audio design just means, like, the sounds that happen. How well does it feel? How is it balanced? A few of these games, it just feels like they did it okay. Expedition 33 is here because, I don't know, everyone just voted for it because it was the best game of the year. Content Creator of the Year, I mean, I'm not here, so obviously this category is bust. I don't really have much of an opinion. I think Critical probably deserves it just because of what he did for Stop Killing Games. Pretty much single-handedly reignited the movement, which I'm very appreciative of. Content Creator of the Year is such a shit category. For a streamer or content creator who's made an important and positive impact on the community in 2025, I don't really follow many of these people. But, when I think of best content creator, I think of someone like Nakey Jakey, who released that video on Counter-Strike 2, which I thought was absolutely fantastic, where he, like, goes through the motions of trying to get better at CS2. And it's an extremely well-made video that touches on topics of being toxic in gaming and, getting better for the sake of getting better. And I highly recommend the video. It is absolutely fantastic. And for, like, the best gaming content of the year, that's what I think of when I think best, like, content creator, especially in gaming. I think of someone who made good content. It wasn't just like a funny streamer man or anime girl. They're always just a token VTuber every year now. Is that a thing? Burnt Peanut has some pretty funny Arc Raiders clips that I've been seeing on my Instagram. So, I mean, I kind of like this guy. The 3 esports categories, I think these can be turfed. The best esports game is always the same, like, 4 games every year. It's always Valorant, it's always League of Legends, it's always Counter-Strike. And I don't think anyone actually really cares that much. These always feel like they're always kind of just dropped, in the side, when they do, like, the side things where they just, like, announce a bunch of awards or at the same time to just get through them. It feels like esports games, esports athlete, and esports team are always done dirty. And it feels like it's a category that not many people really care that much about. Not my jam. I don't know. Pick one, turf the others, or just turf it all. Best performance was actually an interesting category because there are 3 people from Expedition 33 that got a nod. And I feel like it's going to be one of these people who wins it. Erika Ishii, I didn't play Ghost of Yotei. I like them from Dropout. They're really funny. Don't know how they did it performance-wise. I haven't really heard much about it. I don't think Troy Baker's going to win it, at least not for this role. He'll win it for something else later, I'm sure. I'm a bit sad that Alex Jordan isn't nominated for The Alters, because I think his performance as Yandolski was very, very good, especially because seeing as he played, 10 different versions of Yandolski. Very unique performance, very decent. I am very sad he's not on here. I thought that was a pretty big snub. Charlie Cox is a very interesting nomination. I do kind of want to talk about this one because he's kind of my pick for best performance, but I feel like if he wins, it kind of sends a bad message to the industry that, oh yeah, A-list actors, just hire them and they're better than all of these actual trained voice actors. But to explain my vote, I have to kind of spoil Expedition 33. So if you're watching this and you haven't played Expedition 33, you should play it. It definitely deserves a lot of the nominations it got this year, and you deserve to play it unspoiled. So skip to this time code if you plan on playing Expedition 33 and you don't want the story spoiled for you. So Charlie Cox has famously, he was asked in an interview, what he thinks about the game and his work on it. And he kind of explained that he doesn't really remember that much about doing this job. Basically, what happened was that he was contacted by Sandfall and then flown out to wherever they are, flown out to Europe to record for maybe 4 hours for his voice lines for this game, and then just kind of didn't think much of it afterward. For him to just kind of nonchalantly go into a recording booth and record one of the best performances in a video game this year is just kind of insane to me. I think if reward for effort, I think Jennifer English probably deserves it. When I think about Expedition 33, the scene that always sticks out in my mind the most, apart from the beginning, but from a performance standpoint, is always the fuck the mission part. That is just burned into my mind. That is the standout scene from the game where I was like, yeah, that was just a really good performance. That was solid. Gustav dies 10 hours into the game, and then you play as fucking Verso for the rest of the game. Who I think Ben Starr does an okay job, but I think Jennifer English does a better job. But Charlie Cox, Gustav, and played by Charlie Cox, is in the game for a quarter of the time of the other characters, but he just gives such a stellar performance. It's unreal. He shouldn't win, but he's my vote because it was the standout part of the game. He was the standout character of the game for me, even though he's barely in it in comparison to the rest of the characters. Anyway, that's my unhinged thoughts. That's why I personally want to vote for Charlie Cox, but also, feel like it sends a bad message if he wins to the industry. Who will just be like, oh yeah, we'll just stunt cast an A-lister. But Charlie Cox, I genuinely like as an actor in most things he's in anyway. I think he's great in Daredevil, the Netflix series, not the fucking newest Disney series. I mean, he's good in that, but that show is kind of ass. Another category I'm a bit sad about is also Best Score in Music. Luminous Arise isn't here, which is probably my favorite soundtrack of the year. Again, nothing against these guys. Darren Korb. I haven't played Haze 2, but I loved Darren Korb's soundtrack for Transistor. Lorian Testard, complete unknown before he did Expedition 33, then casually dropped a 9-hour soundtrack to the game that is just insane. But yeah, when you look at the first 7 categories, it's just the same games over and over. So it's Game of the Year, we've already been through this. But Best Game Direction, same 4 games plus Split Fiction. Best Narrative, same 4 games, plus Silent Hill F. Best Art Direction, same 5 games. Best Score, same 5 games. Best Action, a lot of the same games, then plus Indiana Jones. Best RPG, it's either going to go to these 2, because these guys aren't voted for anything, aren't nominated for anything else. Till you get to, things like Games for Impact, where you see games that weren't really nominated for anything else. This is an award where it feels people actually put some thought into their nominations, because you've got games like Consume Me, which is a game about eating disorders and body dysmorphia and growing up with that. Despelote is, a very personal story about soccer in Ecuador and what effect it had on the community and kids growing up there during the time when they were in the World Cup. And then there's also Wonder Stop, which is also a very personal game about burnout thoughts go through your mind when you feel like you've peaked and you don't feel like you can do better. My personal vote here would be for Wonderstop, but I would be happy if any of these 3 games won, really, because they're very personal games. It's a category where it feels like the voting committee actually cared about the votes that they put in. It's weird that these games are mostly not nominated for anything else. It isn't until you get to the more, kind of genre-specific categories where it breaks up the monopoly that some of the games have. I mean, Hades 2 is still in Best Action Game, but which means it probably should win because it's up for Game of the Year, while none of these games are. Weird that Dynasty Warriors Origins isn't on here. Again, that's personal preference maybe, but Dynasty Warriors Origins is my favorite action game of the year, I would say. Arc Raiders not on here, whereas Battlefield 6 is. Sim and Strategy is one of very few categories where none of the Game of the Year contenders are here. The Alters finally gets a nod, but, not for what I thought it would get nominated for. What the fuck is Mobile Legends Bang Bang? So, yeah, Game Awards. I can't say that I'm very excited about the awards themselves this year. I'm a bit kind of bummed out by the nominees. They're a bit... They kind of suck. Not the games themselves, it's just the lack of spread in a lot of the categories. And yeah, if you have any thoughts on the Game Awards, the nominees, what got snubbed, then let me know below. I'm interested to see what other people are thinking about this whole Game Awards nominations deal. I think it's good to stress that it doesn't really matter if your favorite game wins or not. I guess, you don't have to take awards that seriously, even though I just spent, the last 20 minutes doing that. If your favorite game of the year is good, and it does well and it speaks to you, that should be enough. It doesn't have to win all the awards. I mean, it is nice to see the game that you think is your favorite, get recognized by, the wider community, but in the end, it doesn't really matter. Award ceremony is watched by a lot of people, and I feel like the standard of quality needs to be higher, especially when it comes to what gets nominated and what doesn't. It seems like it's done in a fair way, but I don't know. Have you seen gaming outlets? It's some of them kind of just fucking suck. And it certainly feels like some of the nomination categories were kind of phoned in. Actually, there was one thing I forgot to mention. In Best AR/VR Game, Deadpool VR is nominated for an award in that category, and that game didn't come out until a day after the nominations got dropped. How that is okay, I don't know. It feels very silly that Deadpool VR was able to be nominated. And maybe it's because VR is such a niche genre. And maybe some press outlets got their hands on the game early and were able to vote for it, but still, it feels wrong that a game that most people don't have their hands on and can't have their hands on until the nominations are out is a game that's eligible to be nominated. Just silly shit. Again, the standards, they're not quite where they need to be for an event this size. And that's my main takeaway from this. I'll probably still watch it. I'm probably still going to do my usual video on it for the year. We'll see what happens. I think it'd be interesting if Expedition 33 doesn't sweep all the awards. If it doesn't win Game of the Year, then that means a lot of everything else is just kind of up for grabs. But if it does win the Game of the Year, it's probably going to win mostly everything else. We'll just have to wait and see. It just doesn't feel very exciting after looking at all the nominees and stuff like that. All right, that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching the video. Give it a like if you liked it. It is. As for things coming up, yes, my end of year video is still happening where I'll be ranking and reviewing every single game that I played this year. Also a video on the Game Awards. Thanks to my YouTube members. I'm putting them on the screen now for supporting me. And that's all I have to say. I'll catch you all next time.